So this is the iPhone 15 Pro, which I've been rocking for the last couple days now, and over this time, I've been able to collect a few thoughts on Apple's latest and greatest. So let's talk about it. Hey, what's good? Prash here with my first impressions of the iPhone 15 Pro relative to the 14 Pro here in this lovely deep purple color, as you can see. And to start us off, let's talk about the design changes, or rather, a lack of. Alright, so design-wise, both of these phones feel almost identical. In saying that, however, I do feel that Apple really did put the 15 Pro on a bit of a diet, as it is a little slimmer than the 14 Pro, both in terms of height and width, whilst retaining the 6.1-inch screen. Now, the phone definitely feels lighter, much lighter, with the titanium bezels taking much of the load off of the 15 Pro. The matte PVD coating is also nice, and while the process of applying this coating is very impressive, it isn't scratch resistant by any means, so be very careful there. The bezel edges are also not as harsh as on the previous iPhone 14 Pro, which does make for a slightly better feel in the hand. Alright, so the A17 chip coupled with 8 gigs of RAM is pretty powerful. Haven't encountered any apps that could slow this beast down. A wide variety of apps run very smoothly, and jumping in and out of apps feel very fluid. The 120Hz refresh rate on this stunning OLED panel definitely helps make this phone feel buttery smooth with great viewing angles. Now, what's funny here is that pretty much most of the things I just explained to you about the 15 Pro still applies to the 14 Pro. Anyway, moving on to the camera. Alright, so I went out and took a few pics, and I gotta say, I expected a great camera, and I got one. Now, despite a newer, larger sensor, it feels like most of the improvements in photography come from the software side of things, rather than the physical hardware. Now, photos come out fantastic, everything feels true to life, with colors being accurately represented, a great amount of detail here, with every shot in a bunch of different scenarios. Now, I will credit this to an update in the computational photography, as the default output for photos is now 24 megapixels, a combination of the 12 and 48 megapixel quad Bayer sensors, which does provide better image quality overall when compared to older iPhone models that still only cap out at 12 megapixels. Now, video here again seems pretty great right off the bat. I'm really liking the cinematic mode. It makes everything that much more picturesque. And yeah, footage overall is pretty stable. Again, this is just my preliminary testing. I've still yet to test this fully, but so far so good. Now, the USB-C port on the 15 Pro is probably the most notable update from the 14 series of phones. Now, while I'm glad that the EU passed this legislation because it effectively forced Apple to join the 21st century, and while this is all great, there are rumors and reports floating around that Apple has allegedly placed a chip inside the charging port of the iPhone 15 lineup, which can apparently verify if a cable is MFI, made for iPhone, and in turn can limit functionality and charging accordingly. And honestly, if this actually is true, then this is the most unequivocal Apple move I've ever seen till date. Now, the final thing I want to mention about the iPhone 15 Pro in regards to my usage over the last couple days has been the battery life. Now, I'm going to be honest, the battery life for me has been pretty hit and miss, mostly miss. Now, it is important to note that I've been using Bluetooth for my watches as well as cellular for navigation and anything I do when I'm out and about. And I gotta say, I can kill this phone in a day. Now, I will say this in Apple's defense, it will take more than a couple days for the device to optimize itself to my usage. This happened with my MacBook Air as well. The battery life in the beginning wasn't that great, but as it optimized, it did become better. Now, this is something that is yet to be seen here, and I will talk about it in my full in-depth review, so stay tuned for that, like and subscribe. Alright, so my overall first impressions of the iPhone 15 Pro a couple days later is honestly quite good so far. I mean, no surprise there, it is looking to be a solid flagship. However, it is still glaringly obvious that there are many similarities between the 15 Pro and this here 14 Pro. And I definitely want to test out the 15 Pro further just to see how much of a difference there is between the 15 Pro, Apple's newest flagship, and the cheaper 14 Pro, which is a great flagship at a cheaper price. So yeah, this has been it for my first impressions. Stay tuned for my in-depth review, and it looks like we're out of time. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.